Hey everybody, welcome back to Through the Woods 360. We are going to smoke that piece of pork that we cut off the top end of that loin, but first we have some things to do. We need to make an apple cider brine to brine that piece of pork in for anywhere between 8 and 12 hours, no more than 12, to make sure that it's going to be extra good when it comes off that smoker. So, to make this brine, this apple cider brine, what it's going to take is 8 cups of apple cider and 2 cups of water and some dry ingredients. I already have 1 quart or 4 cups of apple cider in my stock pot here. We're going to add a half a cup of pickling canning salt, a half cup of packed dark brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of garlic powder and 2 tablespoons of onion powder. I'm going to kind of break this brown sugar up a little bit with my whisk, and then we're going to add the rest of our liquid ingredients here. This is homemade, home-canned apple cider that we made last fall. Oh, that one sealed good in that canner. And my 2 cups of water, which will make 10 cups total of liquid. Make sure we get everything all mixed in there. We want to get this to a rolling boil and then shut it off and let it cool to room temperature before we ever introduce our pork to it. Okay, so our brine was brought to a rolling boil. We let it cool down to room temperature. It's time to add the last ingredient, which is 1 cup of apple cider vinegar. Now the reason we waited to do this is because if you add the apple cider vinegar to this when it's boiling, it's not a very pleasant aroma and it fills your house with a stench. The purpose of the apple cider vinegar is to tenderize the meat. Now you want to take your pork, blot it dry with a clean cloth or a paper towel to get any excess blood or whatever off of the meat. We find that it's best to put it in a large, tall container because it's very important for the meat to be completely covered with brine. So we're going to take this brine and we're going to pour it in here. Completely cover the meat. We're going to put the lid on and we're going to refrigerate this for a minimum of 8 hours, no more than 12. Okay, so we got our pork out of the brine. It brined for about 10 hours. And we dried it off good with paper towels, top and bottom. The next step is we're going to use some of the leftover brine and inject it into the pork. So you want to do this about every 2 inches throughout the piece of meat, and be sure that you don't stick your needle all the way through. You just want it to where the spot on the needle permeates the meat about halfway. Okay, so we've got our pork injected. The next step is the dry rub. Now, you can use the dry rub of your choice. I prefer Head Country. I just like it. But whatever rub you personally like, use that. So to do that, we're just going to sprinkle this liberally all over the pork. And then we're just going to kind of push and rub it into the meat and the fat. Then flip them over and repeat on the other side. One more step before we put this in the smoker is to insert our meat temperature probes so we know when the pork is done. Now, I use a ThermPro thermometer, which I really like because it's got dual probes. And we'll put a link to this in the description. It's important that your probe goes into the thickest part of the meat, obviously, because you want to make sure it's done. So if it's in the thinnest part of the meat, the thickest part of the meat will not be done. So we're going to stick this into the thickest part.
But certainly try to get it in the thickest part towards the center, correct?
Yes, yes, yes. So we want to do these fat side up. Whoops, sorry about that. That way when these start to cook, and they will cook even though we're smoking these at a cold temperature, they will somewhat cook. So you want that fat to render down on the top of the meat instead of the bottom. So we're going to make the right one the bottom and the left one the top. What's really cool about this thermometer is you can download the app from ThermPro and you can watch the temperature of your meat on your phone, so you don't have to babysit your thermometer.
We need to see what you're doing there, Gino.
This is a Masterbuilt smoker, and just put some wood in this loader tray, put it in there and dump her over, and it goes right into the smoke box. And we'll have some smoke here soon.
Okay, so while the pork is in the smoker smoking, we're going to make up one of my favorite sides to go with barbecue. We're going to make up some creamy coleslaw. We got a twist that I don't think everybody does it, but my mom used to always do it, and we like it that way. But the first thing I did was I took a whole head of cabbage and I sliced it up thin. You could certainly do it on a cabbage slicer and a food processor, whatever you want to do. I just used a knife. And then I grated up 2 whole carrots. And this was a big head of cabbage. It was about this big. Now, I've got about a tablespoon of salt here. Now, I'm not putting all of this on here, but I'm going to sprinkle the top of this raw cabbage with some salt. And it's not going to be that much. Not even a half a tablespoon. And I'm going to give this a toss, and then I'm going to let this sit. And the reason why I do this is 2 reasons. The first reason is the salt will help the cabbage wilt down. The second reason, which is the main reason, I don't like my slaw running. I like it creamy, but I don't like it running. And when you add anything to the slaw that has salt in it, it does draw juice, which in a vinegar-based slaw, it doesn't matter because you take that spoon out and the juice drains out and it's fine, but we want creamy coleslaw. We want the stuff on it. So I'm going to take this after this wilts down, and we'll let it sit here and keep tossing it and keeping, getting that salt that runs through from the bottom back up on it. And we're going to let it wilt down. We're going to dump it in a colander, and we're going to let it drain and get all of that liquid out of here. And then we'll mix up our dressing, and we'll show you what my mom's secret ingredient was. And I'll tell you what, if you've never had it this way, you'll definitely want to give it a try. Okay, so we've already drained off the moisture from our cabbage that the salt drew out, cabbage and carrots. And we're going to mix up our sauce. So what Mom always did was, it's basically mayo, but it's not all mayo. So I'm going to take about a little better than a cup. I'm going to say about 1 1/3 cups of mayo. Then I'm going to use part sour cream. It just cuts down on the tanginess of the mayo. And if you like all mayo, by all means use all mayo. You could also put buttermilk in here instead of sour cream if you wanted to. So I'm just going to grab about 2/3 of a cup of sour cream. And I'm going to put in a little splash of just cheap standard white vinegar, maybe about a tablespoon. And we talked about that secret ingredient, right? Oh no, I'm joking. It's not really Limburger. It's sugar. So I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of sugar.
I would try it because I like Limburger.
And we're just going to give this a mix. I got a whisk if I need it, but I don't think I do. Mix it until that vinegar is in there and the sugar's in there. Now, I would normally add a bunch of black pepper to this, but my little boy doesn't really like a whole lot of pepper, so we'll add that when we eat it. Give this a little taste. Tastes about right. Not really sweet, not really sour. Now, the secret ingredient. That's the secret ingredient. Bacon makes everything better.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pound of bacon. And then we're going to take our sauce and get it mixed up really good in here. And we're going to put this in a smaller bowl and put it in the icebox until our pork is done. And this will still end up getting a little runnier as that cabbage continues to wilt down. So it might look a little dry right now, but it will end up being just about perfect later. Look at that. Man, if you guys never had bacon in your slaw before, you've got to try.
Okay, so our pork's been smoking for right close to 3 hours. We're about 127 degrees internal temperature. The USDA says pork is safe at 145 with a 3-minute rest or 160 with no rest. But we don't want to smoke this the entire while. You just want a nice smoke flavor. You don't want it to taste like a chimney. So 3 hours of smoke is probably all we're going to want on this. What we're going to do is take this out of here and we're going to wrap it in foil and put it back in. That will help it cook to its final temperature without drying out and without absorbing any more smoke. That other piece is just a small tenderloin. This is actually the piece that we cut off of that big loin that we processed up into 7 meals. If you haven't seen that video, watch it. It's worth your watch. A lot of good information in there. So there we go. So back in it goes, and the door goes shut. And we're going to crank up the temperature just a little bit. And we're going to cook it to. I don't think we're going to wait to rest it. So we're going to take it all the way to 160.
Ooh, she looks pretty good.
Juicy, smoked.
Yeah.
Done. Ready to shred.
Ready to trim up and shred. And then for the barbecue sauce.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
You were born ready.
Yeah, I was. Mm. This is amazing. Y'all got to try this one. Thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up. God bless y'all. We'll see you next time.